if you were interested in that type of market or you were looking for an opportunity, this may be a stock for you to consider because it could be some upside.
Before you buy any stock, you must do your own research. Like what we're saying today is not a instruction or recommendation to say, hey, you need to go out and buy this. You have to do your own research because there are risks in buying stocks. So with that being said, let's get started. Axon Enterprise, not to be confused with Exxon, but Axon Enterprise, what do you think?
I don't know. And I'm just be straight up with you. So imagine, let me set the scene real quick. You're on a golf course, you're playing basketball, whatever you like to do in your leisure time, and someone says, oh, I heard about Axon Enterprise. Should I buy them or not? What's the first thing you look at?
Well, first I want to know, like, what is it? Because it's not like a household name that I'm familiar with.
It's not, and that's what makes it really challenging because if someone said Amazon, it's like, oh yeah, you should get Amazon, or oh, the price right now is too high. But when you deal with stocks that you're unfamiliar with, the first thing you should do is do your own research, as Terrell said again. I probably have said multiple times. But what this company does is they produce or manufacture Taser equipment and other law enforcement items. Interesting.
Yeah, and I think that part was interesting because the way I came across this one is it was a Motley Fool recommendation. And I was like, again, I'm like, I have no idea what that company does. I'm like, let's look into it.
Okay.
And when I looked into it, it's like, okay, they offer, I guess you say, that would be like, what, self-defense equipment. Yes. And then one thing that did stand out that was a little interesting to me, because I'm working in the tech and the SaaS industry, is they are starting to develop a little bit more on their data software products that they offer for law enforcement. And I was like, okay, all right, that makes it a little interesting because I'm like, to be honest with you, I don't know a ton of people that are going out buying new tasers.
Right.
I just don't.
Right. And that's one thing that I struggle with about this, and right, wrong, or indifferent, I feel some type of way about investing in a company that supports law enforcement just because it's an item that ends up being used on the people. It's not something that goes to support. It more so goes to protect and arrest and subdue and all those things. So that's one of my kind of hesitations to it. Again, that's my personal opinion. I'm not saying that or suggesting that to anyone else by any means, but that's what give me a moment of pause in this when I look at what the company does and who their main customer is.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I started looking at, because like I said, if you look at it just from the self-defense kind of law enforcement equipment, that part of it, and I'm like, yeah, I don't think it's a strong enough business. But what made me take a second look is when I started seeing that, their software side is growing. And the reason why that's of interest to me is because of all the social, I guess the economic things and the social or the political factors around law enforcement, wanting more transparency, wanting more clarity, is the software side of it is pretty much the database of centralizing information, and actually it feeds, or I guess you say it leans more to providing more transparency into how law enforcement is happening, to where I'm like, that makes it an interesting company because a couple of things I look at is, one is, what is the product? Is the product selling? Like, who's the customer? And since the customer are cities and police departments, to where they're always going to have customers and they're always going to have, people, or I guess you say cities buying their product, which I'm like, okay, that's good. Then I'm like, okay, all right, what's the potential ongoing demand? And I think because, individual citizens are demanding, hey, more transparency in this space, I think the tech side of their product is something that makes it more appealing.
And to offer a little more clarity into that, so this company, outside of just tasers and they're doing the body cameras as well. So these are the items that police officers are wearing, whether it's on your shoulder, on the helmets, or even in the chest, where police officers are using or wearing these things. Now, the assumption, I'll play the people, the assumption is that the cameras and the data that the cameras are capturing will become available for public scrutiny, whether it was a arrest or a situation that was used too heavily of force, or a questionable situation that provides a moment of doubt into the police officer's intent, or maybe even goes to support the police officer's claim or report about the situation. So in this moment, in this day and age, when we've dealt with a lot of different question marks regarding police safety and their policies and procedures, this company shows a lot of possibilities and opportunity with their growth. Mm-hmm. Is this a company that can continue to ride that wave and be that main supplier of these body cameras wherever they're wearing them? And I don't know. Again, I am personally, I would pass. This goes along the same line to me as privatized prisons, and I kind of put this in that bucket. But I'm definitely wanting to have the discussion. But to just offer a different perspective, for me personally, I would pass on this stock.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, I mean, I don't know if this is a stock that I would immediately jump on, because I think for me, what makes this stock a little bit more attractive is on the technology side, because, like I said, again, working in the technology space, one of the things that I understand is the software and the I guess you said technology infrastructure behind a product can be used for so many different things. You know, even when people talk about things like cryptocurrency, where people think, oh, Bitcoin, but the technology that's behind it all is actually something that can be used across so many different products.
Yes.
Because I think the same, one of the ideas with the body cams, whereas the first generation ones where all the information is recorded, you have to make it back to the station, you have to load it in. Whereas if you can create the technology to where the body cam gives a auto feed back to the server, then it becomes a completely different product.
Yes.
And something like that can also be used in, let's say, the trucking industry. Because that's one of the, when I worked for a Fortune 500 company, that was one of the challenges that they had, where they were always trying to get diagnostic information off of their truck, but you can only get it when you drive that truck into the station and you plug it in. Yes. Whereas if you could get a Wi-Fi or a satellite feed to where if a trucker has an issue with their vehicle while they're on the road, you can contact the nearest location to provide them the assistance. Because if you're a trucking company, you want that truck constantly running. And the way that you're able to do that is to get constant information.
Yes.
So I think if Axon can figure out the technology behind that, is then they can go from just being a law enforcement kind of, I guess you'd say, personal self-defense, to they can become something even bigger.
I absolutely agree with that, and I think that's an amazing point as to what is the other use of this technology that can be used. If we move aside the Taser and kind of law enforcement conversation and look at, I know the TV show right now that's out and that's been pretty popular, like Live PD. Like, how are they able to get that footage immediately to have a TV show running in real time in these different cities across the country, to be able to follow it along and make a real 4 or 6 hour TV show out of it? Now, I've never watched it, but it appears that they're getting that data in real time. And if Axon is behind this, then how can you translate this information to make it more useful to other industries? The trucking industry for one, maybe medical industry for another, and even retail as well. Like, how can you use this to be able to maximize this information so that you don't have to deal with that time delay between when the action was performed to when the data is analyzed to when the decision is made? You can shorten that time to where you can see it, decide, and make the decision immediately as well.
Because I think that's a big push. Even when I worked for General Electric, that was one of the things we were talking about in the healthcare industry, where they make MRI equipment to where doctors in California at the moment don't have the ability to leverage the research and the data being captured by a hospital, let's say in New York, without already having an existing relationship. But if you have a data infrastructure, or let's say a data warehouse where, hey, the testing and the analysis that are being done in let's say New York can also be accessed and viewed by doctors in LA, whereas across the entire system, you're able to make more informed and more, I guess, healthier decisions for the patients, and you're able to lower the entire cost of healthcare because they're no longer having to run this expensive test that may or may not.
Right.
Whereas the more data you can collect in real time, the better decisions you can make. And I think, like I said, Axon, with this technology or with that software side, is they have the opportunity to leverage that, to not just do law enforcement, to say, hey, how can we also play a role in helping improve the healthcare industry?
Yeah.
How can we help improve, so many different industries, to where I'm like, that product, in a sense, Axon would become a almost brand new type of company if they can leverage something like that.
Yes, I agree. So if someone brought this company to you and we just talked about all of the possibilities, if they were to, maybe they are, maybe they're not, branch off into these other uses of their service or system, what other items would you look at to invest in this company? What about financial information?
Yeah, I would definitely look at sales over time. I mean, as we did in a episode we did when we talked about changing jobs. One of the first things that I do whenever I'm looking at a company, or whether it's changing a job or an investment or buying a company, is follow the money. How does money come in? How does money go out? And the first place how money comes in is, hey, what do the sales look like? I mean, if you look at the trends, are the sales growing? I mean, are people actually buying, or organizations buying the product?
Yes. Is it a substantial business, or will it eventually spike and then struggle? And some companies it takes a while before they get to their peak, and some are just at the ground level. Like, what more market exposure do they have? And is it just, imagine all of the different, and this is looking at what they do right now, all of the different cities around the country, all of the different police departments, and you got the city, you got your state, you got the county, you got the local municipality, you got all of the different people who can at some point have a taser, and just talking police departments or law enforcement, or wear some type of body camera, bike, horse, motorcycle, all of these different vehicles. What you see, their market, you see the possibility. How saturated are they? What's their market share? Also offers an opportunity to see if they're able to grow as well. And I think that's kind of supports your point about sales as well.
Yeah, and I think another thing is, depending on where the company is, and it's like, if it's a very young company, one of the other things about, like I said, following the money is, hey, are they getting money from investors, or more investors, or hey, are they taking out loans and just looking at, hey, what does their debt look like? Because if they have a ton of debt, they may be crippled from being able to do other things like invest in the future. And I think that brings us to the second thing about following the money is, okay, now we've talked about how cash is coming in. How is cash going out? Like, what are they spending the money on?
Yes.
And I think what presents somewhat of a risk on the manufacturing side, if you're just selling a product, you have to buy the material, you have to pay the labor. I mean, you have to invest in machinery and equipment. And it's just like, if all of your manufacturing operations are here in the U.S., then what we know is, hey, the cost of living is increasing, which means like, hey, they're going to have more money going out to cover the cost for those type of things.
Yes.
And I think that's something and also because it is somewhat of a technology, they also have to have enough money to cover that cost. Plus they have to have enough money to invest in new technology or creating new designs. And I was looking and see, okay, all right, what's the likelihood of them coming up with a new design in tasers? I don't necessarily see it.
Agree. And I was actually just going to say that same point is, you have your fixed costs, your rent, your manufacturing costs, and all these other items to actually sell the product. But how much of that money going out the door is for R&D?
Yeah.
And that would speak to what are their thoughts about the future. Are they planning or trying to find that next great thing? Are they trying to take this cloud-based software system and utilize it in other industries and try to figure that out? Or are they spending all the money just to sell these products?
Yep.
And if that's the case, then at some point this product is going to become obsolete and the whole business model collapses, like the camera, the kind of roll-away disposable cameras that we rarely use anymore. But if you're Kodak and you haven't been investing in the future, then, and you're just depending on these or planning or expecting the same product to sell forever, then as soon as that iPhone comes out or that smartphone comes out, your whole market is gone.
Yeah.
And that will be my research for this company as well, looking down their balance sheet and their P&L. What are they spending their money on?
Yeah, and I think that would be, again, what would make this company a great buy is what are they doing in the software space? And like I said, when you're looking at what are they investing their money in, it's just like, hey, are they investing their money in either hiring software engineers or are they investing their money in developing that technology so it is more transferable? But like I said, if you look and you see, well, it looks like what they're spending their money on is enhancing their manufacturing sites or trying to create a new design of the Taser. And like I said, I'm not an expert on like tasers or personal defense items. I just don't know enough about it to say that, hey, there's a future there to say, hey, I would stake my business on that.
Right. Yeah, I don't really see a lot of development. I mean, you've seen the tasers develop over time, so I don't want to ignore that point. I remember the first taser comes to mind is the one where you press the button and the 2 points light up and you hear that loud pop, and then you hear one that is not loud, and then if you get the advanced one, then it sounds like you just have a lightning bolt between those two rods, and it's very loud. More of a deterrent than something that you're actually want to stick someone with, but it is possible to do that compared to where they are now, where it looks like an actual gun that you pull the trigger and the tasers shoot out and then they connect, and then you have that electricity current flowing through whoever is shot with it. So I have seen them develop. I just don't see kind of where they're going now. I mean, or in the future. Maybe it's not anything that's attached. Maybe it's just, I don't know where that development is. And maybe that's why I'm not in that market or industry. But when I think about right now, kind of where we see a lot of the development in businesses and a lot of the opportunity is getting rid of the manufacturing and selling side and just brokering the relationship. Kind of your Uber, your Lyft, your DoorDash, your XPO Logistics, your Amazon, in a way, like they're just connecting buyers and sellers rather than building something. So I would hesitate on the company if you look on a balance sheet and they are building another manufacturing plant. What are you doing here? That's not where the industry is going. But my thoughts.
Yeah, and I think another thing I would also look at is if it is because this is an established company, is from an investor standpoint is what do dividends look like? Because as an investor, you're going to make money either you buy low, you sell high, which means you only make money if you sell, or if the company offers a dividend, you can make money that way. So where, let's say every quarter they give X amount of cents or dollars per share you own, like you can make money that way. And I would always look at that, like if you're going to invest, is thinking about the exit strategy, like how do you plan on making money from this? If it's only from the price going up, means you have to sell to make money, or if they offer a dividend, then hey, you can hold on to it and still get a check every quarter or a check every year. And I kind of look at that to see, okay, all right, how would you make money off of this? And if it's just from the sale, you have to hope that they do something big for the price to jump.
Yes. And I struggle with the dividend because that tells me that it's a very stable company and they're in a position where they have consistent cash flow coming in to be able to offer a consistent dividend. And if you're building and you have a lot of opportunity or a lot of goals for the company, then why would you send cash out the door and in terms of a dividend just to want the money back, just to need the money back in order to achieve or continue to buy or pay for some of the R&D. So I look at dividends as this company's been around for years, maybe your Apples or your Microsoft, and they're just stable. And they see a little bit of change in their sales or items, but you know that they're consistent. They're not going anywhere, and they're able to offer that dividend as a way of getting or basically giving money back to the investors.
Yeah.
But for new companies and kind of those that are still developing, if you're doing a dividend, it's kind of more of a money grab than a way to really plan for the future.
Yeah.
My thoughts.
Yeah. And so, like I said, overall, I think, I think this would be a good company to watch. I don't necessarily say I would go out and buy it today. I would watch it, and the specific thing that I would be watching for is to see what they do in this technology space, because I think there are a lot of political factors that kind of play into this, like whatever limitations or whatever new rulings or whatever new standards get, that impact law enforcement has a very big impact on this business. But like I said, on the technology space, there isn't I guess you say there are less regulations that would drive the life or death of that side of the business. So I would definitely keep an eye on that. And then, like I said, watching their sales over time and what are they investing in? Like, are they building new facilities, or is it more R&D around the software side?
Yes. If you were interested in that type of market, or you were looking for an opportunity, this may be a stock for you to consider, because it could be some upside.
Whatever you're looking at, always do your own research. Don't just take our word and just go out and buy something. You have to do your own research. Like I said, those are things we would consider, things we would look at. So until the next stock review,